Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the latest webinar from the World Broadband Association, co-sponsored by Omdia. I'm Martin Kriener, Director General of the World Broadband Association, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. The topic we're talking about today is all about how can broadband networks meet the needs of tomorrow's applications. And I want to thank you and everyone for joining us. And specifically, we'll be talking about sustainability as a strategic opportunity and the role of sustainability within telco strategy. Before we get started, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. At the bottom of your audience console are multiple application widgets, and you can use any one of them. Make sure you check these out during the webinar. A copy of today's slide deck and other valuable resources are available for download in the resources list widget. And if you have any questions during the webinar, you can submit them through the Q&A widget located on the left side of your screen. All questions will be captured, so if we don't get to answer them, if we run out of time, we'll hopefully be able to follow up via email. There's an on-demand version of this webinar that'll be available in around 24 hours. And that can be accessed using the same audience link that was sent to you earlier. And finally, if you have any technical difficulties, just click on the help widget, where you can find answers to the most common questions and problems. Let me introduce you to today's panel. So today we're joined by Alsbeta Fellenbaum, who's the Principal Analyst at Omdia. We've got Hannah Taylor, who's the Head of Sustainability in Chorus from New Zealand. And we have Philip de Grieve, who's Product Marketing Manager for Fixed Networks for Nokia. And with no further ado, let me welcome you all once more and ask Alsbeta to kick us off here.
Thank you so much, Martin, and thank you everyone for joining us today for this webinar, where we'll be talking about some of the findings from our latest WBBA white paper, which we've entitled Evaluating the Telecom Industry Sustainability Potential. And to kick us off, I would like to take us through some of the main points and main insights that we present in our white paper. So, just as a way of background, in terms of sustainability, generally we speak about the three key aspects of sustainability: the environmental, social, and economic, and all of those are more than relevant to the telecom industry. In terms of environmental sustainability, telecom operators consume significant amounts of energy to power their networks and data centers, and they do contribute to greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. We've evaluated We've evaluated the amount of greenhouse gas emissions to be equivalent of coming from the ICT industry to be equivalent to the aviation industry. So environmental sustainability is a key consideration for the telecom industry, and not only can service providers or the telecom industry positively impact environmental sustainability by their own actions, they also enable other industries in their sustainability efforts by providing the tools and applications for digitalization of adjacent industries. In terms of social sustainability, of course, telecom network operators and service providers offer the critical services that enable communication and access to information for people all over the world. And so social sustainability is again an important consideration for the industry to promote social sustainability. And in terms of economic sustainability, the industry is a major contributor to the global economy, and operators can promote sustainability by investing in infrastructure development, promoting innovation, and create global jobs. So In our research for our white paper, we have decided to conceptualize the topic within the framework of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And as part of the research, we have conducted a survey of the WBBA members and other leading telecom providers and organizations, and also combine the results with an extensive additional research and review of the leading providers' sustainability reporting to evaluate the level of commitment to sustainability, the key incentives for investing in adopting SDGs, and some of the regional differences in approaches to sustainability. So in recent years, we do see an increasing number of telecom operators integrating UN SDGs in their corporate strategies and sustainability agendas. However, there is a very varied level of alignment in the initiatives, and you can see this in some of the results, where clearly some of the UN SDGs around climate action and industry and innovation and infrastructure are some of the core SDGs that resonate within the industry. Other widely mentioned SDGs are the gender and equality and responsible consumption and production SDGs. So in terms of the two top UN SDGs that are highlighted, UN SDG 13, climate action, and UN SDG 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, both of those rely on the telecom industry to provide the necessary digital solutions, which are key to creating the low carbon economy and development of resilient infrastructure that will enable further economic growth and societal progress, which drive the UN 2030 sustainability agenda. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Now, also in terms of the varied maturity, in terms of the levels of adoption of sustainability strategies, our research showed that there are big differences among the industry or across the industry. Out of the participants in the sustainability survey, 68 indicated that their organization has a well-defined sustainability strategy with strong government mechanisms. But on the other hand, on the flip side, a third responded that they're only either now in the process of developing a strategy or that they do not even plan to do so in the next 2 years. And then looking at another sign of mature sustainability strategy can be looking at the accountability of the success of the sustainable policies at management level. So that's kind of the point pertaining to the G in the environmental, social, and governance sustainability criteria. And in our survey, we could see that over half of participants indicated that their organization C-level management receives compensation either in terms of salary or bonus payments, and that are tied to the company's sustainability performance. So again, half does have robust policies in place, but the other half either doesn't have anything or don't know, which tends to be a sign of there's probably a lot more that can be achieved in this area. Then in terms of incorporating sustainability into corporate strategy, this presents a great opportunity for telecom service providers to demonstrate their commitment to responsible business practices and enhance the brand reputation and attract environmentally and socially conscious customers, drive operational efficiencies, and also contribute to global sustainability goals. So we can see as a positive finding from our research that the vast majority of companies view sustainability goals aligned with one or more of their wider company goals. The most common link is with customer satisfaction goals, where 96% agree or somewhat agree, followed by risk management goals, where 91% agree or somewhat agree, and revenue generation goals, where 87% agree or somewhat agree. Yet the fact that alignment with the revenue generation goals has been listed as the last of the wider corporate goals shows that there is more to be done in terms of promoting the link between sustainability as a revenue generating opportunity and raising best awareness or raising awareness to best practices across the industry. So if we now look at some of the incentives and benefits of investing in sustainability and incorporating SDGs into the wider corporate strategies, we can see that most participants in our survey have identified contributing to the reducing of the environmental impact of the industry as the main benefit. We also see that increased customer and employee loyalty was the second most recognized, with 59%, and then about half of participants listed improving social conditions for people and markets where their company operates. Quite interestingly, addressing companies' own operational challenges and getting ahead of regulatory scrutiny ranked lower in the list of the benefits, which again suggests that there could be more done to tie sustainability policies initiatives to the concrete operational efficiency improvements. We've also listed here and in the white paper some of the key incentives in terms of each of the key aspects of sustainability for environmental, social, and reputational incentives as well, where we see sustainability topics and policies to be beneficial for companies in terms of attracting new customers, but also attracting new talent for their workforce pool. As you know, sustainability is becoming more important to consumers and employees more than ever. So again, now turning to some of the challenges that we've uncovered through our research. One of the biggest barriers or challenges in terms of measuring sustainability progress and also kind of developing sustainability agenda into a widespread topic is the absence of unified and widely accepted reporting metrics. When we asked about some of the specific initiatives that our members and the survey participants use to measure their progress towards sustainability goals, we've received kind of a mixed bag of responses, with science-based targets being mentioned most often, followed by the Global Reporting Initiative and the Carbon Disclosure Project. While these are all helpful tools in evaluating companies' level of commitment to sustainability, the sheer number of them, there are also tools or indices that evaluate companies' ESG practices in terms of future investment and ratings. But the sheer number of these rating agencies and indices can often contribute to muddying the waters because the rating scores can differ significantly and also be hard to decode. So the lack of some unified reporting is certainly something where we see the biggest gap for the industry. Which brings me to our recommendations. We strongly recommend that telecom operators work together, or not just telecom operators, it's the whole industry that works together to define the common sustainability targets and indicators to promote global change. Partnerships are key for progress in all three aspects of sustainability: the environmental, social, and economic. We also uncovered that materiality analysis is an important tool for companies to identify which sustainability initiatives and specific UN SDGs they need to focus on. And a lot of leading telecom operators include materiality analysis in their sustainability reports already, but I think more can be done to make this a widespread practice. We also see that there needs to be a clear line drawn between profitability and sustainability. When there's a clear line between sustainable strategies and policies and making profit, it makes it easier for companies to adopt and implement sustainability strategy. And also in terms of the benefits of sustainability initiatives to consumers, those need to be communicated and promoted to consumers and customers globally. So I think that brings me to the end of my presentation, and I will now hand over to Hannah to talk about the service provider and telecom operator perspective.
Thanks, Alberta. Kia ora, Photo. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here with you today. So Chorus builds and maintains the broadband networks that connect New Zealand homes and businesses to each other and the world. We are an open access internet infrastructure company that provides wholesale telecommunications services to over 90 broadband retailers across New Zealand. So where are we on our ESG or sustainability journey? I think it's fair to say that we started a few years ago, but only now are we really accelerating our efforts. So I'm going to share a little of our journey and the highlights along the way. So often environmental sustainability becomes the main focus for organisations. However, we were really keen to take a holistic view when looking at our strategy, considering our impact on both people and planet and how we could make positive change, not just for our business, but for the communities we support. It can feel overwhelming, so where do you start? Chorus ran workshops with a cross-section of teams across our business to really help identify key material ESG topics for us to really consider. And we use the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as our guide. We then conducted a materiality assessment with key stakeholders and customers, a 3-month process of in-depth interviews that gave us really clear areas to focus on. From that assessment, we created our first sustainability strategy, which is interwoven with our business strategy. And we took the time to get buy-in from the exec and the board. But part of the key to our success was really making sure that it was interwoven into our business strategy. So sustainability, as I said, is integrated into this strategy with 3 key pillars representing our commitment to improving environmental, social, and governance performance: thriving environment, sustainable digital futures, and thriving people. So while we have these 3 pillars to our sustainability strategy, and they are enduring, the activities within them have and will evolve over time. And we will continue to make sure that we really respond to the changing operating environment and the needs of our stakeholders as well. So our sustainability strategy sits alongside our diversity, equity and inclusion strategy and really informs how we connect and understand Te Ao Māori. So what are we really aiming for with our strategy? We have recently signed up to 2 science-based targets, one to reduce our Scope 1 and 2 emissions by 62% by the year 2030, And really, to achieve this, we have a key focus on reducing electricity use and also investing in renewables. We also have a science-based target to make sure that 70% of our suppliers by spend have a science-based target or equivalent in place by 2030. So what's our progress to date? In the last year, we managed to reduce our Scope 1 and 2 emissions by 24%. And we've seen a 5% reduction in electricity use. We also are now powered by Telco climate positive certified electricity, which is quite an achievement for us. And we're investing into solar PV on our nationwide exchange buildings with design standards and pilot sites identified. We've started to move our fleet to electric vehicles, and we've also set up a sustainability forum to really work in partnership with our supply chain and key suppliers. So the New Zealand government passed the Climate Disclosure Act, a mandatory climate-related disclosure regime at the start of the year. It requires large financial market participants to disclose information about their climate-related risks and opportunities in annual climate statements. It's been introduced as part of New Zealand's journey towards a low-carbon future and to help businesses have a good understanding on how climate change will impact them, both in terms of risks and opportunities. So New Zealand is world leading in this area and is the first country to introduce the legislation that will see mandatory climate reporting going forward. And setting a strong governance structure for our business has been crucial as we work through what this really means for us. And despite having a small dedicated sustainability team, we have a much bigger sustainability network made up of advocates across our business. And this has been a great way to champion awareness and really drive action. So in February 2023, we saw Cyclone Gabrielle bring devastation to the east coast of New Zealand. You can see on screen here Mike, who's one of our field managers, and he was one of the first on scene, relying on Army convoy to get to the devastated region. Many major roads were destroyed, as you can see to the picture on the right of the screen. Cyclone Gabrielle caused significant damages to homes, infrastructure and livelihoods across our northern and eastern regions. And it was the costliest non-earthquake natural disaster that we have seen to date. Our Chorus network sustained extensive damage from the weather event of the cyclone, with 5 significant fibre routes impacted. And this event really highlighted the need to continue to understand the potential impacts of climate change and the need to invest in resiliency. So we are now looking at ways to make river crossings more resilient and how alternative technology can be used to provide added diversity to our fibre routes. We've also started to look at the different scenarios that will impact us in the future. And we're working really closely with the Telecommunications Forum in New Zealand to make sure that we come together as a sector to look at those scenarios and to make sure that we have a strong action plan for going forward. And within Chorus, we have a risk management framework that's being applied to our climate-related risks and opportunities. And that's something new that we've introduced in the last year. And as I said at the start, environmental sustainability can often be a major focus. However, we're also considering our impact on people and the communities that we serve. The Chorus is a member of a network of organisations across New Zealand dedicated to achieving digital equity for all. The digital divide has several obstacles such as availability, affordability and adoption, and we understand the significant change that can occur by just paying attention to these things. So how are we going about that? We're looking at it in 3 buckets. So for us, We have fibre to the home for about 87% of New Zealand, which is quite an achievement. But we want to push that further, and we want to make sure that we put a real focus on supporting our rural customers. And that's why we've made a commitment to take fibre to 90% of New Zealand. We also recognise that for many, having a good, fast broadband connection is simply unaffordable. So we're working with the government and agencies like the Ministry of Education to see how we can change this. So during COVID, we offered free student connections through the Ministry of Education and supported over 20,000 students to be connected for free. And then finally, adoption. Without having the skills and the confidence and the trust to really be online, it's really important. So we've partnered with several organisations who are in our communities and really changing the way people use their digital skills. So, in summary, sustainability should just be the way that we do business, and it is for us. By folding into business strategy, setting ambitious targets, and having strong metrics, and also ensuring that you set up a governance structure that runs across your business in terms of accountability is really key. It's also really important that you take the time to understand the risks and opportunities that climate change and other environmental and social issues bring to your sector. All of this combined holds the keys to efficiency, cost saving, innovation, and more importantly, it holds the key to understanding the challenges, risks and opportunities ahead in order to ensure we reduce harm, adapt to harm, and help others do the same. That's the end of my part, so I'm going to hand over to Philip.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. So my name is Philip de Greve. I'm part of the sustainability practice at Nokia. I focus on fixed networks, and I think during my part of the presentation, I'd like to give you a bit of the supplier view on things. Maybe which initiatives are working, and also give you some concrete examples that could inspire also for what you could do. And I'd like to start maybe just from our daily life, because sustainability is all around us and we don't always realize that those same principles can also be applied to the telecom area. So when you look here at the image and you're in your kitchen, as we all do, we buy white goods like the refrigerator there on the left. And you do compare, you have these energy labels that allow you to compare the energy consumption of the devices to guide you in your purchase. Now, the same can be done for equipment used to build broadband networks. And actually also the industry in the end would actually also would like to work on such labels. Second example is those recyclable bags there on the counter. There is the indication to move away from using plastic, both in products and in packagings, and also start to, let's say, imply taxations on it. So the same thing is going to come to the telecom industry. And maybe a last example is when you look at any business or corporation that you see advertising on the web, CO2 emissions is becoming an important factor. There's even an example in France where the government made it mandatory on the telecom bill to not just indicate the price of a subscription, but also the CO2 emissions that are associated to your internet subscription. So imagine also that these things will continue. So I believe that it's in the space where we are. I will talk later about it, where yes, regulation is important, but there's also a way how sustainability can be used to differentiate. And it's actually that differentiation that also can drive progress in sustainability. when people start to see it more and more as a competitive advantage, as I'm sure you noticed from all the advertisements that you see around you. To give first of all, a bit of an example on how Nokia's ESG strategy is, it's divided in 5 pillars. First area is around environment and energy efficiency. It's one of the bigger ones, where we try to improve power efficiency and circular practices. We base this also, as been mentioned, on science-based targets, where we also committed to reduce our emissions by 50% by 2030. And we also report and disclose these numbers. And also one of the other things we do, which is quite tangible as part of the renewable energy group, we also are working to make our facilities 100% running on green electricity by 2025. So this is, again, a very important area. Second area is how we can make, as an industry with Telco, industries more productive. So examples are here from the agriculture industry. You know, a lot of the food that gets wasted, it's not because it's in your refrigerator and you are the one maybe not consuming everything. There's actually a lot of waste happening in the entire supply chain. So more effective telecom and IT networks can improve or reduce food waste. Another example is in smart grids. You see many moving to smarter and smarter grids to produce energy and distribute electricity to the homes of people. Here also these systems are making more efficient use, become more reliant against natural disasters, and basically also make electricity more cheaper with these movements. A third area is around security and privacy. I think this is very important. It's a growing domain, as more and more is around data, about collecting data, storing data, but also exposing data to do smart algorithms, to use AI on it. You have to do that in an ethical way. So this is also a practice area. Then a fourth area, and I think this is also quite a big one, is around bridging the digital divide. It's something where we can help a lot. And there are 2 domains in this. There is, on one way, the actual physical connectivity. So bringing connectivity and giving people equal access to healthcare, education, and employment. As Nokia, there are a number of things we're involved in with UNICEF projects. In Kenya, we did a project also in California, in Morocco, to connect underserved areas. Last year, we also did a Network in a Box program that was post-COVID, when there was the whole supply chain crisis. We also reserved then a number of packages for smaller operators in rural areas to be deployed, separated from, let's say, it's not the biggest customer that gets all the equipment. So we really did there a clear separation. Now, it goes beyond connectivity. There's also social responsibility programs. So these are then areas like where we do competence development, mentoring, training programs like the Udacity program. That's an example where, if you look in Silicon Valley, Black people are underrepresented there. So we joined an initiative to train Black students in AI technologies like Java, Python programming, to prepare them better for the job market. But also initiatives in other areas where you have gender inequality or even gender-related violence disadvantaging certain groups. We also have programs running. And last but not least, and I think it's a bit of a summary of everything, this can get you recognized as Nokia. Here we are on the list of the world's most ethical companies to work for and with. That's quite important. So this is maybe good for business, but it's also good for attracting people, young people, Generation Z. They are entrenched with all of this, and they do want to work for companies that really make progress. And working at Nokia, we're a highly diverse company. And maybe here I also want to stress that a lot of these topics, they could be considered as soft, talking about sustainability, but it's also important if you believe in values that you act upon them. So also another action that we took was with the whole situation in Ukraine, Nokia also decided to exit the Russian market, and basically, we do or we act on the principles that we stand for. This is all part of an evolution where we see more and more that when you talk about networks and equipment, that it's no longer designed to cost. That was how it was originally. And it's thanks to a lot of these initiatives from countries and governments around carbon neutrality that we more and more move to design for environment, centered around some of the sustainability development goals that were part of the survey. And as a consequence, we are now also starting to measure. And this is quite important because if you measure, you can only know and you can act upon. So what we did here is this is actually where we measured everything we produce, and this is including for our products. Now, as Nokia, you have the scope 1, 2, and 3. You heard about that one maybe already. For Nokia, we do also things like electrical vehicles and renewable energy. But for us, as a manufacturer and equipment provider, our largest part of our emissions are in the usage of our products in the field, as you can clearly see here. So that's why you'll see that a lot of the questions we get and also a lot of the actions we take are in the area of energy and energy efficiency. But that's I think important to recognize. The more and more we move to green and renewable electricity, the other domains will and are already becoming more and more important. So we also see that you need to take actions in the way how you produce, the materials you use, how you get the product shipped and delivered to the operator, but also the end of life. What do you do for take back, for recycling, reuse? That's also becoming more and more important. Now, if you look at purely at that energy consumption, that's the most important part. It is clear that I would say hands down, fiber to the home is green broadband technology, and it's the most green on the market. I don't think any other technology can connect a user with consuming less than 1 watt. And also when you look at passive optical networks, due to their nature, their passive elements, the reach they have, the purity of the fiber, they are also the most efficient way to transport the bits. But we have to be clear about one thing, not all connections will be fiber. So even by 2027, so that's still quite some time from now, more than 1 billion people will be fiber, but this only represents 45% of all the households. So whatever we do, it will be still necessary to also consider other technologies and make them as sustainable as possible to connect, because we can't leave any people behind if we want to close the digital divide. And then maybe on the last slide, I want to explain then what are some of the concrete actions that we do, that Nokia is taking. So first of all, associated with that big usage bar, power reduction is important. So we developed our own chip. That was a good way to reduce our footprint and get basically the throughput per watt down dramatically. Another area that we worked on was recyclability of our gear. So we have declaration documents that explain which materials are used, how they can be disassembled, how they can be repurposed, and also we have refurbishment programs active. And last but not least, we've also worked on the packaging, getting rid of all the plastics in there, making it 100% recyclable, And even as an additional benefit, being able to reduce the space of the packaging so that actually the transport efficiency goes up, and we also get less CO2 exhaust from that perspective. And I want to leave it at that and hand it over back to Martin for the Q&A.
Excellent, and thank you. Thank all three of you, Elzbieta and Hannah and Philip. Really interesting and different perspectives on that. We have a lot of questions to work through here and relatively limited time, but maybe we'll get through some of them and we'll give answers, written answers to some of the others. Let me kick it off here with you, Hannah, about the more general role and responsibility of the industry, the telco industry, to progress towards the UN SDGs. Obviously, you talked about it, and Philip talked about it in terms of it does make business sense as well. But what would you view as the role and rationale of why we're doing this, and is that evolving and changing over time?
Yeah, it's a great question, Martin. And I think, for every sector, every business and every individual, they should know United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, because really that is the kind of North Star, if you like, of how we really change the way that we live and actually support a thriving planet and thriving people. So I think really the key for the telecom industry is to make sure that we're having conversations around how we can work together on the goals that can have the greatest impact, and then make sure that we're aligning our kind of strategies and action plans behind it. But I think it starts with collaboration and having really great conversations as a collective sector.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe Elzbieta, you could pick up on this in terms of, there's a question about, are there regional differences between the different approaches to sustainability for telcos, between everything from US to China to New Zealand to Belgium?
Yeah, well, definitely is the short answer. But to maybe expand a bit on it is, I think we see Europe as being kind of one of the leading regions in terms of both regulation as well as kind of more on the corporate responsibility of companies based in Europe and driving the sustainability agenda. We also have the European Code of Conduct in Europe. Sorry for the noise. And that is something that is not commonplace in other regions. So there is certainly more to be done in regions like North America, some parts of Asia Pacific as well. Although to be said, I think Hannah mentioned or touched upon Australia and New Zealand kind of really being at the forefront of sustainability regulation, but it kind of circles back to the lack of unified standards for the industry that I think the industry would really benefit from if there were an initiative that would kind of unite all of the companies and everyone would get behind and work on collaboratively.
Yeah. I like to add to that, because if you look to the survey results, I found the difference quite striking. I expected a difference, but not as big as we see in the survey. And I don't exactly know why, but I think that if you see some of the conversations, they have a different perception around sustainability. In many conversations, it's more about long lasting, which, if you think about it, is really good for sustainability. So they talk about fiber, they say it will last for 100 years, okay? But if you, for instance, then have a conversation about how do you roll out fiber, more the answers go like, yeah, if you roll out fiber, make sure that you roll out enough fiber so that you don't need to open the ground twice. So it's not that in all these conversations they start about CO2 emissions. So there is indeed still a difference in the way how they talk about sustainability. And again, I don't know why. Is it because the energy crisis hit Europe harder, or maybe another one that I see is when you look at those regulations against use of plastics, most of the countries that have done so far, like imposing a tax on plastics, they come from Europe. So there are a couple of differences, but I didn't expect that would show up so in our survey.
Yeah, I think the focus on CO2 emissions is maybe not surprising to me, because it ticks the two big boxes. It ticks the one box about saving money for the company. If you can reduce your CO2 emissions, it means you're reducing your energy consumption, perhaps, and therefore, that's a non-trivial amount on your bottom line. And the other one is it very much ticks the topic that maybe people would raise about greenwashing. That if you can say I'm reducing CO2 emissions, it means I'm somehow a good boy, and it looks good in my report and account. Of course, it's also a good thing to do, but people make a very big deal of it. Maybe, Hannah, there has been a lot of not complaints, but claims that the world is full of greenwashing as opposed to actual impactful people and companies making actual impactful change. Have you got a thought on that, and is that changing at the moment?
I think it is changing, Martin, and I think consumers are, as they understand more about the challenges we face, they're more aware of organisations that are potentially greenwashing. So I think we do need to be really careful, but I also think we need to celebrate the work that we are doing in this space. So it's a fine line. And I think, in terms of avoiding greenwashing, it really is as simple as just making sure that any claims that, we make as organisations, we can substantiate. And that we, put data and the right information into the stories that we're telling. And really, it's just about being honest about where we are on the journey and what we have achieved. And I think we all hold each other accountable in some ways to make sure that we kind of tell that story with integrity and honesty.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a kind of a carrot and stick thing there as well, that you tell the greenwashing story or the factual story, which gains you brownie points, but then the stick side of it maybe is the regulation that comes in behind that. And what is the regulation then going to insist that you do? So you do something, you do the right thing now, because you're going to be forced to do it in 3 years' time anyway. And so now is as good a time as anything, and you get the extra benefit from people's positive reaction to your company. Philip, I mean, you obviously coming from Nokia is as you say, it's rated very high in terms of its attitude to the whole sustainability challenges in the world. I mean, what's your view on the role of regulation, the stick side of this thing, rather than just the carrot?
Maybe just on the stick and the carrot, I can recommend a video from Apple. They just, I think, released a week ago a very nice and funny and slick video about sustainability, and they play a little bit with the greenwashing. So they admit that is an issue, and you have to be careful about it and really act. So that's something I can recommend. But on the stick part, I think it's a difficult question, and I think it was also one of the questions in the survey, is to quantify which roles was the countries, the governments, the industry, and the CSPs and the vendors, which have a big role to play, and then the countries, they came on top, and that means that indeed a lot was driven by them, because indeed you can ban plastics, you can put a taxation on plastics, but I think there's always a concern with that if you regulate too much. That, for instance, if you think about electrostatic bags, there's no biodegradable alternative today, so you still need to innovate a lot. So you have to be also a bit careful. Or when you think about nation funding, so government funding for new projects, if you would promote that these need to have a certain CO2 emission per bit to be granted the new funding, you could end up in situations where areas that are underserved, unconnected, maybe disadvantaged, and that basically the digital divide would widen. So I think we have to be cautious there. And in the survey, it was somewhat, I found it a little bit of a remarkable that the CSPs and the suppliers, they came out in the bottom. And it's, of course, how do you explain that question? I think today it's first, of course, there needs to be some global initiative so that you have a kind of a level playing field. But I do think in the end, if you would do the survey maybe again in a couple of years, the innovation will come from CSPs, from suppliers, to come with solutions to reduce the footprint. So yeah, regulation, I think it's needed. But in the end, as you see with consumers, they decide in the end on what they buy and how they evaluate the initiatives of different companies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Elzbieta, I know we talk a lot about sustainability and environmental sustainability, and in particular about energy consumption and carbon footprints and so on. But the other two key pillars of sustainability are around social and economic. And those are when you look at the UN SDGs, you see 17, I think, of SDGs, and one of them is around carbon. And the other 16 are around other equally important topics that they don't get the same coverage maybe within our industry. But what's your view in terms of the telco industry's position on driving the whole social and economic aspects?
Yes, certainly, and I think that was kind of the aim of our white paper as well, to maybe provide a bit more insight and analysis on the two other aspects of sustainability, the social and the economic, because we do see it as maybe not for the industry as like the low-hanging fruit in terms of environmental emissions reductions that are also more easier to quantify, but in terms of contributing to socioeconomic progress of societies and of the markets where telecoms are operating, I think there's a huge potential. We dedicate quite a lot of the white paper to digital divide and the various initiatives that companies across all of the regions are focusing on. And what we've kind of seen in our analysis is that also maybe some of the more emerging regions are focusing maybe more so on the social and economic aspects of sustainability, contributing to policies and strategies that are aimed at closing digital divide, promoting more connectivity, and also focusing on maybe underrepresented groups within societies. So I think there is that aspect. But then also when we think about more of the practicalities and incentives, there is also money to be made in the social and economic pillars of sustainability. I think Philippe kind of touched upon it in his slides that having a robust sustainability strategy can help drive not only customers to a company, because customers are increasingly paying more attention to whether a company that they're buying products or services from is a green company, and they will prefer to go with a sustainable and climate friendly company rather than another. And also attracting new talent as well for the labor pool. That is an important part as well that can help companies make money essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of questions coming in here there's questions around metrics and we talk. I suppose there's a hunger in the industry for saying we get it. Now, can you give us almost like a practical, ladybird book guide to what we need to do to make a practical change within our organizations, to make the practical case within the organizations? And there's a question here, for example, about do we have any metrics about how much carbon is embedded in a kilometer of fiber, or how much water is used in cable production, radio equipment production, and so on? And the short answer is yes, all of that information is available. The challenge is, even if you get that information, how do you apply it inside your organization? One of the aspects of the sustainability work group within the WBBA at the moment is to really drill down now onto the practicalities of what can you do to reduce energy consumption at a very practical level, going all the way down to the chip design and so on. So Hannah, maybe you could just give us some thoughts on that, on this hunger people have for help us with the really practical things.
Yeah, and it's a great question. I feel for the people asking that question, because I was there at the beginning of my sustainability journey, I guess. Look, I think with all of this, you need to take the time to look at data, understand your business, and look for where the biggest impact sits, and that's unique even across our telco sector, because I think you have to be able to see where you as an organisation can make the biggest impact, and then use different tools like mechanisms for capturing your CO2 emissions, or look at the data points that you've got available to help you along the way. And even with things like, how can you put a metric against, something like the digital divide? Again, I'd encourage you to, speak to government agencies, work with others in the not-for-profit space who are, on the ground, because often they hold a wealth of knowledge and data and understanding, so that you can really make sure that the actions you're in place will make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And join the WBBA guys and get involved in some of these teams. Obviously you can read the output once we produce this in a while, but you can get involved in the discussions right now and get access to some of the really interesting data that we're playing with on this, in order to then work out how to apply that back to your company. The other thing I will throw into that as well is it's not just about the equipment and the chips or whatever. It's all AI is going to play a very important role in all of this in the future as well. And so you need to think quite broadly in terms of the role of AI in helping you really optimize the energy efficiency and carbon efficiency of your networks. And that's an area that's also been looked at quite closely in a number of industry groups, and the WBBA will be looking at that as well. I'm conscious of the fact that we're running out of time here, and I've still got a big long list of questions and comments and so on that have come in. Is there any final thoughts from each of you, Philip, Alzbeta, Hannah, before we pull the plug on this?
I guess my final word, Martin, to anyone watching this is, it's really important to stay curious, keep digging, keep looking within your organisations and within your own regions and areas of focus, because there's so much more that we can do. And I think just being curious and courageous and collaborative will get us to where we need to be.
Yeah, I would say start by measuring, and don't be afraid indeed to share those numbers. It's not a competition. To be clear, there is no wrong or bad number. It's a way to learn to measure, and you'll find out that you'll get more accurate in the measurements, because that's not so easy. And then you can really act upon it. And that's the one thing I wanted to advise here.
I would sign all of that and just highlight that, you know, cooperation is key, and keeping data and secrets to ourselves is not going to get us anywhere in this, and we're kind of in this all together. So it makes sense to collaborate and work together.
Yeah, it's absolutely a great topic for collaboration. There's obviously competitive angles that different companies have and so on in this space, but by and large, this is a common problem, commonly held problem. We're all going to benefit if we share our good ideas about how to make each small incremental step. Let me thank you again, Elspeth, Hannah, and Philip, for not only excellent presentations but excellent discussion and so on the panel. If you have any other questions, we have some additional questions here that we haven't touched on at all, and we will try and maybe reach out to you separately with some information or some thoughts on that. But thank you for listening, and we will draw this to a close now. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.